Today's daf is daf Ayin Beis, and we'll start with Amar of Papa, which is 4 lines down. After a little bit of an introduction, the Mishnah at the beginning of Masechet Gittin, Amevi get mi v'dinas hayam le'eretz Yisrael, tzarich lomar b'fanei nechtam, because they weren't bikiyim in the halacha of lishma. But if you bring a get from Eretz Yisrael to Medinas Hayam in the opposite direction, then there's no need for the shliach to testify, because in Eretz Yisrael they were Bakiyim, they were experts and well knowledgeable in Lishma. However, the Gemara in Gittin Adaf Vav quotes Rav, who says that Bavel, as far as Holachas Haget and B'fonei Nechtam, has the same status as Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, if you bring a get from Bavel, there's no need for the shliach to record or to testify that B'fonei Nechtam. So now the Gemara starts with an analysis of comparing Gittin and Yuchsin with regard to the Gvulos, the boundaries of Bavel. And Omer Papa ki machlokes li Yuchsin, kach machlokes li Gittin. We had a machlokes in yesterday's daf, daf Ayin Aleph Amid Beis, about the Gvulos of Bavel, Orka v'Rachba. And that discussion was relevant to Yichus Mishpachos, because Ezra cleaned out the Psulim and he purified Bavel. Comes along where Papa, and he says the identical machlokes between Rav and Shmuel applies to the Gvulos of Bavel with regard to B'fonei Nechtam. However, Rav Yosef disagrees. Omar, machlokes liyuchsin aval gitin divrei hakol arba tinyana de gishra. And we said yesterday that arba tinyana de gishta is a body of water that's made up of kanim and aravos, and it's on the northern side of Gisha of the Gesher. And according to Rav Yosef, with regard to Gittin, everybody agrees that the Gvul of Bavel extends to include even that area. Okay, now today's daf is a little bit different, and a large chunk of it doesn't really deserve or need any Magid Shir to explain, because it's all based on maps and locations in ancient Babylonia. Amar Rami Bar Abba, Chavil, a place that's called Chavil, Yama Techilta de Bavel. As far as Yuchsin is concerned, that district called Chavil is the highest level of Yuchsin. And any cities that are located within the district of Chavil, as far as Yuchsin is concerned, you marry a woman from there, you know you're getting an Isha Ksheira, you don't have to check it all. For example, Shunya, Gvul, Guvya. So these are cities that are located in a different district, which is called Chavil Yama. And these two cities are the Tchelta. Tchelta always means Klil Tiferes, meaning the highest and most purified level within Chavil Yama. Ravina Omar Af Tzitzora. Add another city that's also located in Chavil Yama by the name of Tzitzora. That also is the Klil Tifarta of Chavil Yama. Tanya Nami Hachi, we have a brayso to support this. Chanan ben Pinchas Omer Chavil Yama Tchilta de Bavel. And which cities are Tchilta de Chavil Yama? Shunya, Guvya, Vitzitzora. Omer Av Papa, Va'idna today, in our time, you can no longer rely on the Yuchsin of those mishpachos. And why is that? What happened in the interim period of time as the generations went on? The Arvibu Kusoy, the Kusoyim got mixed up there. Now, I'm going to give if you give me the poetic license here to give a Beispiel, a comparison. Question is, do you trust the journalism, so to speak, of Hamas? They're all full of lies. What happens is they propagate lies. And therefore, the Gemara rejects Rav Papa, Veloi, who propagated these lies, that in these places in Bavel, there was an admixture of psulim that got mixed up in a tarovis of mishpachos. Isisahu debai minayu. There was a certain kusi who fell in love with a Jewish girl in that place, and the response was lo yavule. They refused to let this girl marry a kusi. So therefore, he went out and he started sending out messages. His journalism and so forth and so on was that there were kusim who were actually mixed up in these mishpachos of Yisrael. Gemara clarifies, my Chavil Yoma. Where is Chavil Yoma? Amar Rav Papa. It's on the Euphrates River, Pras, Dvursif. And if you want to know in proximity to which city it is, it's close to a place called Bursif. The Gemara tells us the following story. Hahu Gavra di Omer Lahu Anomin Shot Meshot. A person wanted to show his credentials in order to marry a Jewish girl, and he claims in front of the Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael that I come from Shot Mishot. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak Nafchal Raglov Yomar Shot Mishot Bein Hanahoros Omedes. There are two major rivers in Bavel. There's Nar Pras and Nar Chidekel. And this place called Shot Mishot is located in between the two rivers. So Gemara asks, Bein Hanoros Omdos Maihavi. What's your point? Why did Rav Yitzchak Nafcha have to emphasize that the location of Shot Mishot is between these two great rivers? The area between the two rivers has the same status as Gola. The word Gola is synonymous with Pumbedisa. And in Pumbedisa, the status of a girl, if you want to marry her from Pumbedisa, is, as far as Yuchsin, considered Yichus Vadai, that she's Miucheses. And therefore it's important for Yitzchak Nafcha to identify Bein HaNaharos because it has the same status as Pumbedisa. Vehecha Kaima, exactly where can I find on the map Shot Mishot? Amar Rav Yochanan, Me'ihi Dekira Uliel. It's from the southern side of Kira, south of Kira, which is on the coastline, so to speak. How do you say Sfas Nar in English? On the riverbank of Nar Pros. So the Gemara asks for Rav Yochanan. We had Rav Yochanan Daf Ayin Aleph on Beis, that the yichus of Bavel extends in the south only ad Ma'barta de Gizma, and Shot Mishot is south of Ihi de Kira, which is south of Ma'bar de Gizma. So therefore, it's outside the bounds of Yichusei Bavel. Amar Abaye answers, Ritzua Nafka. This is something that we saw in Gittin, in Masechet Gittin, Ritzua Nafka, which means that there's a strip of landmass that goes from beyond the boundary and extends to Shot Mishot, and that Ritzua is included under the status of Yuchsin above him. Amar Rav Iko bar Ovin, Amar Rav Hananel, Amar Rav. There's another river which is called Chalzon. And apparently, right near that river is a location which is called Nihavnind and Arei Kigola, meaning that city has the same status as Pumbedisa, and an Isha from there is considered Miyucheses. Omaluhu Abai Lo Tetzisule. Don't accept that statement of Rav Ika. And it sounds like Abai is accusing Rav Ika of lying, but we'll see in a second that's not so. Yevama hi denafalei hasam. What does that mean? Rav Ika had a brother who unfortunately died without children. And his almana fell to Rav Ika, the surviving brother, for Yibum. And therefore he wants to be miyamim her. And she comes from this location, which is called the Havranah. So therefore he is telling us that the women here in this place are miyuchasam, so that he can fulfill the mitzvah of Yibum. And all this is based on a principle in the Gemara, which we had back on Daf Ayin, that if a Talmud Chacham is Mora Halacha B'Shas Maisa, we don't accept that Horah. In other words, if Rav Ika was responding to the fact that this woman, his sister-in-law, fell for him to Yibum, and he therefore testifies that that location is full of miyuchasim, then we don't accept his ruling, his psak halacha, his horah. Why? Because he was saying it as a response of a ma'aseh shahaya. Amalei Rav Ika said, no, this is an ancient halacha that predates what I'm telling you. I'm only passing on a transmission, a tradition. Atu didihi, did I come up with this ruling on my own that you want to say that I'm not reliable? I am quoting this halach in the name of Rav Chananel. You certainly trust me that my transmission in the name of Rav Chananel is true. Azil shayle Rav Chananel amalu achi amarav chilazon niarvanin harei kigol yuchsim. The Gemara now explains that pliga de Rav Abba bar Kahana, that this statement of Rav that we just quoted, identifying and defining Chalzon Niavnad as Pumbedisa, is against the sheet of Rabbi Abba bar Kahana. The Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, the pasuk says Malachim Beis Perek Yudches, Vayagol Sancherev Melech Ashur es Aser Shivtei Yisrael Ashura Vayenachem Bachlach Ubechavor Nahar Gozon Viori Modeh. And Rabbi Abba bar Kahana explains this pasuk. Chalach Zo Chilazon, Chavar Zo Hadyev, Nahar Gozom Zo Ginzak, Ore Modeh Zo Chamodon v'Chavrosel, meaning all the cities that are adjoined. The Amrile, according to others, Zo Nihavrad v'Chavrosel. My Chavrosel, what are the cities that are close to Naharvda? Omer Shmuel, Krach. There was a large metropolis, and in that area you'll find Mushche, Chuske, Verumke. And regarding these areas, that's where Sancherev took 10 Shvatim into Golus. And what does that mean? Amrav Yochanan, Vikulam Lifsol. They're all psulim. Why? Because the Aseres Hashvatim intermarried, and the Vlad is possible. And therefore it comes out that according to Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, Chilazon is considered a place where there's Aseres Shvatim of Golus. And according to at least one transmission, Niharvad is included in that Chilazon. So therefore these places are not Miyuchasim. Now Shmuel says that achas michavroseho, if you paid attention, is moshche. And on that, Rabbi Yochanan says it's psula. Because Salkadai Gemara thinks now that mushche hainu mushkine. So the Gemara asks, well, Omar, Rabbi Chia bar Oven Shmuel mushkine arei kigola. We had already a statement earlier on this Amud, identifying mushkine as status-wise pupadisa, leinin yuchsid. Gemara answers, these are two separate locations. One is called mushche, and that's a problem. And then there's mushkine, where you could rely on the yichus. Now we mentioned chilazon and dayav. And in Sefer Daniel sees a vision of chizayon, where four chayos, which metaphorically represent the four malchios that will conquer the world, the second of which appears like a dove, like a bear. And Daniel says, utlos alim befuma ben shinel. There are three ribs between its teeth. So the Gemara asks, befuma, it sounds like these ribs were in the mouth of the dove. But then it says, ben shinel, which sounds like it extends outwards beyond the mouth. And the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan, these ribs, zo chilazon adayav unitziven, they are metaphors for these three places, shepa'amim, that during the Malchus of Paras, Bolaton, in other words, it's swallowed up inside the mouth, and the Parsiim control it. Upa'amim, sometimes Polatzon, sometimes Malchus Paras will vomit them forth, meaning when they rebel against them, then Malchus Paras will not be able to subdue them and dominate over them. The Gemara now wants to clarify which Malchus is the pasuk referring to. At the beginning of the pasuk, it says Va'aru Cheva Ochri Tnyana Damya Ledov, meaning that it's similar to a bear. Utani Rav Yosef Elu Parsia. The Malchus that's compared to a dove, metaphorically, is Paras. And why is Paras compared to a dove, says Rav Yosef? Sha'ochle v'shosim kidov. I think I once was told, when I was in Canada, that a grizzly bear eats on an average day 250,000 bushels worth of berries. U'misurbolim kidov. And the Parsiim are fat like a fat bear. U'megadlim seir kidov, and they're very hairy. Ve'en lehem menucha kidov. Right, they're always running around from place to place. And Rabbi Ami, ki avichozi parsa derochiv, when he saw a Parsi riding on a wagon, Omar, he declared, Hainu duba naida. That's a moving bear that doesn't have menucha in one place. It's always nodain, never stays in the same place. Amalei Rabbi Levi, Rabbi Levi, Har'eni ha-Parsi. To what can you compare the Parsi? Amalei domim lechayolos shel beis David. Their power is similar to the power of the battalions of King David. And Rebbe continues and asks him, Har'eni Chabarin. Chabarin is an Ummah that borders on Paras, and they are mashchisim v'kovshin yosem mehem, according to Rashi. Another interpretation is that they are the Bnei Parsi. Domim lemachole chabola. They are like the evil angels that bring about destruction. Rav asks him, Har'eni Yishmaelim, what is the mashal that alludes to the Yishmaelim? Domim l'seirim shel beis hakisei. They wear dark clothing similar to the shadim that are preoccupied with the bathrooms. Hareini Talmidei Chacham shebeBavel domim lamalochi hashares. Ki havanicha nafshei de Rebbe. Very often we find that a great scholar on his deathbed gets Ruach HaKodesh. Rebbe on his deathbed had Ruach HaKodesh. Rashi identifies it as Nevuah. And he has prophecy. V'Omar, there's a city by the name of Homanya, B'Bavel, Ikabavel. V'Kuli Amonoi, all of its inhabitants are Ammonian. There's a city named Masgaria, Ika B'Bavel, in Bavel, V'Kula D'Mamzerehi. All those who live in the city of Masgaria are Mamzerim. There's another city by the name of Birka, Ushnei Achim Yesh. There are two brothers in that city. He's already foreseeing, prophesizing the future. We would call it in contemporary language, they swap wives. There's another city called Birsa de Satya, Ika B'Bavel, Hayom Saru Machrei Mokum. And Jews who lived in that city were Shmadzach, meaning they were converted to other religions. And what brought those people in Satya, in Birta Satya, to do such a thing? The Akve Pira B'Kavi B'Shabta. They raised fish and they kept the fish in a pond called a bibar. And on Shabbos, we noticed, or again, he's foreseeing the future, that the place is overflowing with fish. So this was a great opportunity for fishermen to catch a lot of fish. The Ozelit Sodavei Shabta. They couldn't overcome their temptation, and they violated Meleches Tzeda on Shabbos. Shamtinu, Rabbi Achi, Rabbi Yoshi of Ishtamu. Rabbi Achi put them into Nidui, and as a result of excommunicating them, they went to Shmadzach. They left the Jewish nation. Rebbe again prophesizes. Akra di Agma Ika Bavel. There's a place called Akra di Agma in Bavel. And there's a man by the name of Adavar Ava Yeshba.